wine country, everyone. This is Mark Blanchard with Blanchard Family Wines, back with another episode of our wine talk show, Decanted, where we open up the conversation with fun and interesting guests. And I am so excited about our guest today. She is an amazingly talented, prolific contemporary artist, painter. She has a new book coming out that is called Worthy. And she is an old friend, ladies and gentlemen, the Tracy Piper. Hello, Tracy. How are you today?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm good. I'm excited to taste some wine. Oh, my God, I got dressed up. What is this? Is this pandemic still?
Right? Well, hey, you look fantastic. You look like you're ready to start tasting wine. So, before we get into the conversation, let's get into the wine. Let's start. I already have a glass of wine in front of me. I suggest you start with some Pinot Noir. So this is our 2018 Russian River Valley Pinot Noir. So Tracy actually chose 3 great wines in our portfolio. We are going to taste through our Pinot Noir, our Zinfandel, as well as our red blend. So we're starting with our 2018 Russian River Valley Pinot Noir. So cheers.
Cheers. I totally poured way too big, but whatever.
Yeah,
I'm like, this tasting's gonna be
that is a no messing around wine glass right there.
Well, I'm a mom, so
right? You need a big glass. No, that is impressive. Well, right off the bat here, let's talk a little bit about your art career, of course. So I want to tell you, I am not an artist myself. Well, other than the art you're drinking right now. I mean,
that's hard,
right? It's drinkable. It's drinkable alcoholic art that worked there. But I personally have always been, an art enthusiast and fan. When I was in college, I actually studied a lot of art history. I actually worked for the art history professor in my college. I was his assistant for a year or two. So I really kind of gravitated to not just art, but artists. And I am such a fan of yours. In fact, before we get into it, I think actually I should tell the brief story to our viewers of how we met and how I became a fan of your artwork. Do you remember how we met?
Yeah, we met on a boat.
We met on a boat. We met on what was basically like a wine cruise through San Francisco, through the bay. And it was this little tugboat with a little bar. And I was hired to pour wine on this cruise that went around the San Francisco Oakland Bay. And I think you were there with friends, maybe celebrating someone's birthday?
Yeah, my husband's birthday and his best friend's birthday. I think they were turning 35, so maybe it was like 10 years ago.
Oh,
it was a while ago. Yeah,
it was a while ago. No, that was a fun experience, to say the least. An interesting experience being on this tiny little tugboat drinking wine. In fact, I took a bunch of pictures that day because it was so scenic and people drinking my wine, the scenery and the beauty of the bay. I took a bunch of pictures that day, and one of the pictures was you and one of your friends drinking wine. You had the wine glasses and your hair blowing in the wind of the bay. And it was such a great picture. It's part of the slideshow in my tasting room.
Oh, that's so nice.
So you have been represented in Blanchard Family Wine's tasting room for the last 10 years on our slideshow.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, it's you're part of the scenery here, of course. Now, because of that, I ended up finding you on Facebook, discovering your amazing art, became a fan instantly, and have followed you ever since. And it's really been a pleasure kind of watching your art career develop and your artistic style develop. So I really wanted to ask you again, as an art fan, I find it a little bit hard actually sort of pinpointing your style and your influences. And I mean that in a very complimentary way, because I'm sure you hear it all the time. You're very unique, but very original. I have a hard time saying like, oh, well, she's clearly, influenced by this artist, or, she's in this vein or this style. So tell me a little bit about, how you became an artist, some of your influences, your inspirations.
Yeah. So, wow, 10 years, you've definitely watched my career grow. I think actually when I met you, I must have just been segueing out of being a circus performer. And that's really where my love of art, of all things art, started. You know, I started circus when I was 9 years old. And that was my career until I hurt my back. And then I went to art college. And I think that really shaped what I'm doing today as well. The circus is all about bright colors. It's a diverse group of people. And my work really is, it's about diversity. It's about inclusion. It's about the queers, you know, everyone. It's about everyone. Because I think as a circus performer, especially one that travels, you meet all types of people. And so that's always been kind of my driving force, is beautiful color and beautiful people.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
What did you do at the circus?
I don't know if I told this about me to you.
I'm trying to remember. I'm now remembering that we did have a conversation about there were circus performers in the group. But what was your role in the circus?
So I was a hand balancing contortionist. But I juggle and I can still walk. I can do all of that stuff. But yeah, after a car accident, it's very hard to bend your back the way I used to, which was cool. Actually, you know, it was good. I ended that career kind of early because contortionists don't have long careers anyway. Some of them do, but not most Americans don't make it that long. It's a hard job. And so, yeah, when I hurt my back, I decided to go into art college. I actually studied illustration. I thought I was going to be a cartoonist, thought I was going to make comics. And then I just fell in love with painting. I took one really good class from a painter, a female painter named Tara Vaught. And she's a badass, actually. She's amazing. She does all this like Iranian art because she's Iranian, and it's like she's next level. Anyway, she just really inspired me. She opened up the world to me, like, what is fine art? What can it be? What can you talk about? And the answer is you can talk about anything you want. And that really excited me. So I started painting, and even though I graduated with an illustration degree, I went right into fine art because I wanted to talk about things that were important to me, and I didn't want to wait for someone to hire me. I just wanted to paint what I wanted to paint.
I love
so
it.
That's the beginning of that career, you know.
I love it. Is there any artists that you consider, you know, an influence, you know, stylistically? Do you have a favorite, you know, painters that growing up that you were drawn to?
Yeah, I mean, so I come from the illustration world, and this is probably why it's hard for you to pinpoint where I'm actually getting influences from. Because a lot of my influences are from that side of art, which is more, maybe you would say commercial, or, but we're used to this visual stuff. So one person that I would say was a huge influence on me is this guy named Andrew Loomis. And he was doing like a lot of illustration back in the 50s. He's an amazing artist, just an amazing draftsman. You can find his books online. If you want to learn how to draw and paint, go find Andrew Loomis. It's amazing. He's so good. And then, yeah, I was looking at a lot of like 70s illustration where they like do watercolors and then the face comes out of the watercolor, but they didn't have this kind of coloring in the 70s. But if you look at a lot of that stuff, you go, oh, that's where she's kind of taking from and then elevating to today. Yeah.
Well, I'm admiring the art in the background there. You know, love it. Now, I'm curious about the female face you have on the easel right behind you, but I'm really curious about the painting on the ground there. Is that Bill Murray?
Yeah, so I'm just in the studio, so I only have a couple things here, and these are actually, the Bill Murray is probably the oldest piece that I have still, and then this one's from 2018. That is a Bill Murray piece. I did a show in San Francisco, God, before I was pregnant, 2016, I'll say. Where we did famous people. So this piece, it's funny. He's got like a little party hat on, and I named it "Bill Murray Can Have This Painting" because did you ever hear about that? Where like people would put up signs and they said "Bill Murray can party here." Did you ever hear about this?
Well, not exactly, but I'm very familiar with the kind of mythology behind Bill Murray as a human being and how he does just show up to people's parties.
Yes. So he went on this, like, this is a side tangent, but he went on this world tour or US tour where if you hung up a sign that said Bill Murray could party here, he would, like, if he was in the city, he would just show up. So I thought, might as well make a painting that was like, Bill Murray could have this painting. And somebody actually ended up buying the original. This is like a print I made because I love the piece. But I was like, if Bill Murray shows up, he can have the painting. He doesn't have to buy it. But so now someone's collected it. So
I tell you, it is possible that could happen. So there's a book called The Tao of Bill Murray that tells these stories, and then there's a documentary on Netflix. Did you see the documentary?
No, I haven't yet.
It's all about stories of Bill Murray showing up to people's like houses for parties, or crashing weddings, or like changing someone's tire on the side of the road, because that's Bill Murray. He goes around the world and just gets in these random adventures, generally by himself. So I read the book, I saw the documentary, I'm a huge fan, and in all these stories, there's this sort of underlying reoccurrence that is Bill Murray. When he meets these people and they're like, oh my God, it's Bill Murray, he'll look them right in the eye and he'll say, no one's ever going to believe you. Because if you told the story about how Bill Murray showed up and you gave him a painting, like no one would believe you. Like that's an unbelievable story. You know, Bill Murray showed up to your house for a party. Like that's an unbelievable story. So his joke is he always tells people no one's ever going to believe you. So after watching that documentary and reading the book, this is a few years ago, I had it in my head. I said, one day I'm going to meet Bill Murray. I've just convinced myself, like I wanted to will it into existence. Said, one day I'm going to meet Bill Murray. And when I do, I'm going to look him right in the eye and I'm going to say, you're right. No one's ever going to believe this. So this is a true story. Right before COVID hit, so this is like 14 months ago, right before COVID hit, I traveled for the winery a few times. I got on a plane in 2020, last year, believe it or not, I got on a plane like 3 or 4 times before COVID hit. I did a whole bunch of traveling, not since, but I did a bunch of traveling. Yeah. And I flew to Illinois for some wine events and projects. That's where I'm from, Illinois. And I'm in the Chicago airport. I'm in O'Hare Airport in baggage claim. And I got one of the big carts, the big luggage carts with boxes of wine, shipping boxes of wine, like 4 or 5 big cases of wine. And I'm awkwardly pushing this cart around. And I literally run into Bill Murray.
Oh my God.
Like hit him with the cart. And he looks at me and I look at him. And I swear to God, I looked him right in the eye. I said, you're right. No one is going to ever believe this.
What did
he gave me that look of like, you stole my line, touche. He laughed about it. We ended up hanging out for like 15 minutes. We ended up hanging out and chatting. And he was asking me about the winery. And he kept trying to steal the boxes off my cart. He kept like grabbing them and pretending he was going to run away. And no joke, the entire time we're having this conversation. He's like, tell me about your winery. And, where you from? Oh, Healdsburg. Oh, I've been to Healdsburg. The whole time we're chatting, he's got a banana peel in his hand. And he keeps throwing the banana peel on the ground, trying to get people to slip on it.
Oh my God. What
pure Bill Murray fashion. So he was just like, so Mark, tell me about your wine. And then he would throw the banana peel down and someone would walk by and he'd go, watch out, banana peel. And then he'd pick it back up and say, what kind of wine do you make, Mark? Banana peel, watch out. For 15 minutes. And I'm like, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. Like an actual, so basically, I willed into existence the concept of one day I'm going to meet Bill Murray, and I actually did. So I had to bring up that amazing painting. If Bill never takes that, I will maybe buy that off you one day.
Well, the original already sold, man. People love that piece. And unfortunately, this is not like a great representation of it because I never got a good photo of it. So that person who bought that piece, you are lucky.
Lucky.
And I don't do too many famous people anymore because that's not really where I'm at anymore. But if you see up behind me, that's a David Bowie on a record that I did. I could pull it. Well, you can see it. But I rarely do famous people anymore because I just feel like they get enough attention.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I love the fact that your artwork, you put so much, color and bright color on their faces. But with David Bowie, like he actually might have painted his own face that way. That
Totally.
might actually just be what he looked like. That could be just a photo of David Bowie.
Actually, the reference I used for this, I aged it a bit, but do you know his he has like a police photo of him.
Oh,
so
yeah.
That's the reference I used. Here, I'll pull it down.
His mugshot.
It was his mugshot, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's a public domain, y'all.
Oh, right. Look
Yeah.
at that. That's a good one.
Yeah, this is the original, and I'm having a hard time giving it away or not selling it. Because it's like after he passed away, I was like, maybe I don't sell this one.
No, keep that one. That's a great one. So on that note, I think we should move on to wine number 2.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
You're in your home studio, so feel free to chug any wine you don't finish.
Oh yes, don't worry. Tonight we are going to be drinking well. I actually I'm making. Do you know what a sous vide machine is? I'm a big cook. I don't know if you know that.
I did not know that, and I do not know what a sous vide machine. Explain that one to me.
Well,
I'm a bit of an amateur chef.
A sous vide. I got it actually for my birthday in lockdown. Oh, here we're switching to the Zinfandel, correct?
Jackson James Zinfandel.
Yes. First, cheers. Cheers. Yeah. Ding. Ooh. Mmm. Oh, that's a good one. That's perfect. We're going to drink that with what I'm about to tell you I'm making today.
Yeah, I want to know. We're going to pair this wine.
Yeah, so so a sous vide machine, what it does is you vacuum pack whatever you're cooking, which you can do just with water. You don't need a fancy machine. You just need a plastic bag. You season whatever you're making. So today I'm making a chuck roast, which is kind of a cheaper cut of beef. But what you do is you vacuum pack it, you throw it in this water, and it's this little machine that keeps the water at like a stable temperature. So I'm cooking it at 138 for 48 hours. You just leave it. Yeah. And it slowly cooks the meat. And through this process, it's a chuck roast, but it'll taste like prime rib. It's amazing.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And now I'm hungry. Thank you. I have heard about this process. It's supposed to cook it like perfectly evenly, right? That's the whole idea. Mm-hmm.
And I will say it comes out a little weird looking because it's perfectly evenly everywhere. And then you want to do a sear on it, or you want to throw it through a hot oven or a hot grill to get that crisp. Yeah. It kind of comes out like it'll come out looking a little like, ooh, I don't know if I want to eat that. But it's just because it's so evenly cooked, and then you add that little sear at the end. Oh my God, it makes you look like a professional chef. It's so cool. I'm not paid by any sous vide machines here. I like cooking.
I was saying, did you get involved with the pyramid scheme? Are you going to try to recruit me to sell these? Is this what's happening? Is that what's going on?
No, but it's, especially during the pandemic, I've always loved to cook, but this is just really like taking my cooking to the next level. Nice. Because like I think we were saying earlier, like at the very beginning of the pandemic, like you just didn't know. You didn't know someone touched your food, So this was like, I was like, well, I am cooking 24/7, 3 days, all 7 days a week. I'm just going to be cooking. So I just got really into it.
And by the way, the Zinfandel is going to, I think, pair really perfectly. Honestly, I think the Zin's the wine you want with that meal.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like, that's what I'm thinking. As soon as I sipped it, I was like, oh, that is going to go so well with the red meat. It's going to like really play off the flavors. I'm doing like just salt and pepper and a little rosemary, but I think it's just going to play really well. That's why I was like, oh, I got to mention it.
Well,
very nice.
Speaking of COVID times, let's talk a little bit about, other than learning how to cook in plastic bags, how did you spend your COVID time? But specifically, how did the last, call it 13 months of COVID times kind of affect you as an artist as well?
Well, I think at first I thought I'm screwed. I think we all thought that at first. But honestly, this year has been one of the most, what's the word I'm looking for? Not like monetarily best for me, but also like I think people were staring at their blank walls and going, oh, I'm stuck at home. I need art on the walls. But more than that, this year, along with Voss Gallery, with everything that was happening, especially after George Floyd's murder, I realized like, okay, because my work is very activist. I know you've been following me for a long time. I talk about hard subjects. I talk about systemic racism. I talk about, all these things like gun control. And I try and present it in a beautiful way. But these are subjects I really care about. And for a long time, like the fine art world, I felt like that it didn't quite fit. You know what I mean? And this year, really, I think people really, their eyes were open all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden people were like, oh, I get what you've been painting about, which is weird. Like, it's a weird thing to celebrate. You're like, I told you so. Systemic racism is real, At the same time, so like one of the things that happened was I made a fist painting.
I remember that.
And we made prints of that. And we sold them, and 100% of profit went to Black Lives Matter. And this is crazy. This is like one of my proudest moments in my life. I thought maybe we would sell like 25 of them. Yeah. You know what I mean? And we sold over 300 of them. We raised over $20,000 for Black Lives Matter in the matter of like 3 months. It was crazy. The gallery, Boss Gallery that I work with, we were like, siding prints as fast as we could make them. It was insane. And it just like, it goes to show how hungry America is for this kind of change. Like, it was a beautiful thing. It was like a really stunning thing. And it's like one of my proudest moments, like just to see the power that art has to change the world. And that, I think, for me was the real shaping of this weird time, was like to really reaffirm that the work that I'm doing is worthy, is important. I think in some ways this year was one of my best years to just reaffirm that I'm doing the right thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and when kudos to the fact that I think what we've seen is, like you said, so many people kind of waking up to these ideas that some of us have known existed all along. Right now, of course, with an unfortunate movement of kind of anti-Asian racism that's going in America. I am half Chinese. My mother is from Hong Kong. I grew up the weird half Asian kid in Peoria, Illinois in the 80s. You better believe I know what,
You know what it is. Yeah.
And I remember right when, some of these sort of unprovoked attacks on Asian people started happening a few months ago, or at least the press started talking about them a few months ago. I remember telling my wife, I said, we're going to start hearing all these people in America kind of waking up and going, wait, there's Asian racism? Like, is this new? Is this, I hadn't heard about Asian racism, whereas, I spent 41 years of my life dealing with it. So, to your point, it's like I think a lot of people over the last year kind of woke up and like, wait a second, is race an issue in America? Well, yeah, it's always been. You just figured it out. So beyond that, the fact that you put your money where your mouth is, you didn't just post on Facebook, stop the hate. You didn't just talk. You did something. You raised $20,000 to support a cause. So that is really very admirable and impressive that you did more than just, say something online, post something on social media. You did something. That's pretty amazing.
Well, thank you. And I mean, I think, so I grew up in Oakland, which is a, melting pot of diversity. And I am as white as they come. I'm going to preface that. And I have, I try and listen more than I speak, but I do speak out because I believe that silence is worse. And I mean, my whole career has been about representation, showing the diversity of the world, because I realize, if as a white person, if I have this little pedestal, which, let's be honest, that's America. White people are on this little pedestal. And if I have that pedestal and I can bring up other people with me and I can invest in the communities that I want to see there with me, then yes, 110%, yes, I will give away. I mean, I'm giving that money to people who know better than I what to do with it for causes that I believe in. And what a beautiful place to be. Like, honestly, the fact that I could make that change is a blessing. You know, like that isn't lost on me. Like I said before, I thought I was going to sell maybe 20, 25 of them. And the fact that it took off, I mean, that's a blessing, you know, and yeah, I'm still like, I've got chills, like just even thinking about the power that we can make change, and that we can make change with things that we love, you know. Like I love to paint. I just love to paint, and I love to paint people. And to see that have an impact is just, it's the most rewarding next level thing. So.
Well, I noticed in following you, especially over the last year, how much your art started really representing, you know, social commentary, social causes, social issues. You know, you were doing a lot of paintings with people wearing the masks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel like that's always been, you know, part of your artistic expression, but maybe even more so recently. Do you think it's important for artists to have a message?
So I get in fights about this all the time. And this is why, because look, you know, there's some things where we can pick and choose to say something. But honestly, I think if you have a platform, not saying something is a decision. Yeah. And so this is why I get in fights, because I get it. Like I'm painting these funny cat paintings right now because I'm in a new studio and I needed a break. And sometimes it's fun to paint cats, and my kid and I are having so much fun looking at funny cats. You can do that, and that's great. But I think also, especially now, especially as a white artist, like not saying something is worse. And so, yes, I get in fights with this with a lot of other artists, but I think if you're avoiding the topic, then you're obviously uncomfortable with the topic, and it's time to at least say something, at least show that you're interested, at least look, at the end of the day, I know that I have a following, and by not saying something, that's damaging, you know?
No, absolutely. I love that. And I love, you know, kind of witnessing the direction that you've gone in the last year with some of your social commentary. And I think a lot of it really has been, like I said, it's representation. You know, it's commentary. I think what I really appreciate about what you do with your artwork is it's not, you know, preaching a message so much as just representing something, representing it. Representing, you know, I think underrepresented images.
And I think, you know, back in 2018, I started doing this series, which was from a show I called You Are Loved, and we toured it around. You know, I went to Art Basel with it. I went to Art San Diego. I went to like a lot of big art fairs. And I think for me, what really reaffirmed that I was on the right path is I was doing this work. It was a piece that was of a woman with natural hair, and I had it hanging up in Miami. And this guy comes around the corner and like stops dead in his tracks to look at this piece, and he starts to cry. This is a Black man. He starts to cry, young Black man. And I was like, oh my God, are you okay? Like, what's going on? And he was like, this looks like my sister. This looks like my mother. I didn't expect to see this here. And that moment, I was like, I'm on the right path. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like when that like that's what I want. I don't want us all to just think Mona Lisa is the ideal of beauty. You know what I mean? Because there's so much beauty in the world. And oh my God, like to see something like that and cry, think about what it took for him to even feel represented. Like that is a powerful moment in that man's life. And if art can have the power to do that, like I'm in the right business, because that's like, even if I'm not making it, I mean, I do okay, but like, you know what I mean? Like take the money out of it. Oh my God, I changed somebody's life.
Yeah.
You know? And that's a powerful thing to feel. I feel so good about that. I don't know if that's weird. I don't know what.
No. I mean, I can tell you again, you know, as a half Asian kid that grew up in the Midwest, the only ethnically mixed person I knew until I probably hit high school was my own brother. So the idea of, you know, seeing a representation of me didn't exist. There weren't there weren't representations of half Asian people. There was no, TV character or movie character or superhero in a comic book that looked like me.
Yep.
In recent years, there's been more representation of Asian people in popular American culture and half Asian people. But I can relate to the idea of looking at a painting and saying, like, that looks like me, that looks like my mom, that looks like a family member. And, that is powerful. And
it's so powerful. It's so powerful to feel seen, and it's crazy. Like, I was saying to someone, I was like, somebody was asking me why I'm like so on this path. And, my work before my son, I was making Bill Murray's, and I love that piece. But then I got pregnant and I really started to think hard about, like, what is my role in society? I think that happens when you get pregnant because you're thinking about the next generation. And, I really realized, I was like, what is it that we all need? Like, what is it I want to provide for my kid? What is it that we need as a society? And what it came down to was love, like to feel loved, which is such a mom thing, I guess. I don't know. But honestly, like, having him really, like, also reaffirmed myself and, like, what I'm doing is right. Because I was like, God, how many times growing up, and I feel like I lived a privileged life, I grew up in Oakland. I went to Oakland public schools, but, my parents were around, they stuck together. I never was hungry. I always had a house over my, roof over my head. But still, like, even I had struggles with, wanting to feel loved, right? Wanting to feel seen. And so that after having my son and then coming back into my work, it was like that became my mission, was just to make people feel seen, to make people feel heard, and to hopefully make a difference. And now I feel like after COVID, I feel like more than ever, I'm doing that. And it's a wonderful feeling.
That's beautiful. That is a beautiful sentiment. So on that, let's move on to wine number 3 here.
Yeah.
And
we're getting into it. I like it. That's the beauty of wine, right? You drink, you have a good time, you talk about important things. I love it.
That's the whole idea, and why I called the show Decanted. When you decant wine, you're opening the wine up. And I really started thinking about this concept of how wine really opens people up. It opens conversations up. And, this is exactly why I do this. The last wine we're going to try here is called the Marcel Bleu. Yep, the Marcel Bleu Red Blend. So the Zinfandel tribe was called the Jackson James. Jackson James is actually my brother's 13-year-old son, Marcel Bleu. The wine in your glass is named after my 2-year-old son.
Oh, that's so sweet.
We call him Blue. His first name is Marcel. My name, Mark, means warrior. Marcel means little warrior or little Mark. But we call him Blue. And this is the second vintage of his wine, kind of a tribute to him. So cheers to your son and my son.
Yes, cheers.
So at this point, I think we need to talk about your book. Let's talk about Worthy.
Sure. So on that tip of talking about feeling represented, so the last 2 years, so I took a year off, or how many years did I take off? He's almost 5. So I took 2 years off of hardcore painting. Yeah, he was born in 2016. And then in 2018, I was like, I'm going crazy. Being a young mother of a young child, I need to go back to painting. As many mothers know, you kind of get lost in babyhood. So this book is from 2018 to 2020. It's all of my work kind of coming back. Like I said before, like having him, I was doing a lot of deep thinking about what it is I wanted, what legacy I want to leave behind. What do I want to tell the next generation? And that's kind of where this book is kind of reflecting on. So the name of the book is Worthy. We're talking about worthiness, right? Like being represented. And the book is awesome. It's like segmented into the 4 shows I did in 2 years, which is actually a lot for an artist. It's just full of beautiful representations of my work. And then there's like a little intro, and then each show I kind of talk about what I was thinking about, what was happening during that time. And then, so it'll have a little bit of words about it. I know this is like the worst lighting, sorry. But it's really beautiful. I wanted to make something, because I have a lot of fans out there who maybe can't afford an original. I have a lot of people who buy prints, and I'm so thankful that that's the case. This book is $45. I wanted something that was like affordable, that you could keep on your coffee table, that you could kind of peruse. And I also wanted something, because like you can buy a print, but you never really hear the voice of the artist about what I was talking about. And so for me, it was really important to make the book and talk about what I was talking about. So that's what the book is. I hope that was good.
When's it coming out? When can people buy this book? And how can they buy it?
So, unfortunately, due to the pandemic, shipping has been really difficult. So we were hoping to have this available by now or by May, but it's looking more like June or July. You can pre-order right now through my website, which is thetracypiper.com. Just click on that shop button. But yeah, we're hoping June and July. It's been tough, man. I don't know if you buy anything from anywhere, but shipping has been just a nightmare this year.
I'm the one shipping out stuff all
and
the time. So I know we've done all these virtual wine tastings, and we have to ship wine out ahead of time to the people before they do the virtual wine tastings. And we've had a few instances where, half the wine didn't show up in time for the virtual wine tasting, despite shipping it out, 2 weeks in advance. Because shipping's been a little bit weird this year, but I cannot wait to hold that book in my hand.
And we are really thankful. I know you pre-ordered, and we actually had a lot of people pre-order, and I'm really thankful for that. So what we're doing, first of all, anyone who pre-ordered, I'm signing it. And if you left a little note for me to write something in it, I'm definitely doing that. And then as a thank you for everybody's patience, I'm including, this is exclusive news. I haven't even said this anywhere yet. But I'm going to be including a print, a limited edition print that only the pre-ordered people get, because just as a thank you for your patience. It'll be signed, it'll be numbered, just the number of people who pre-ordered. So however many that is, you'll get a print from me. That's just that for you guys who supported me. So.
Well, as you know, I already ordered a different print of your, I should say my wife did. Hopefully it got delivered today, I hope. I think it might be delivered today. But my wife just recently, discovered your work and fell in love with it. And, as much as we'd love an original on the wall with a second baby due in a few weeks, I had to hold my wife back on our finances. Said, honey, just order a print for now. We'll get an original soon enough. But I can't wait to have a piece of your artwork hanging in my living room. I'm ecstatic about it.
And to be honest, it's really tough because I come from Oakland. I'm not, I'm not a rich lady. I'm working on that.
Yeah.
Hey. But honestly, I know that fine art is expensive, and that's why I offer prints of a lot of my work. That's why I'm offering the book. I think art should be accessible, and at the same time I think we should pay ourselves, and that's a whole nother, we could go on forever about capitalism and all of that, but to me it is really important. It's always been like a cornerstone of my art career to make sure that art is accessible, that my work is accessible, because I think it's important. I think, even my cards, I have like little mini prints on my cards, and I give them out all the time. And like people send me pictures of them hanging up in their rooms. Like they're like these little, like people really love them. And I'm like, that is amazing. Like, oh my God. And that's something free that I give out because I think it's important. I think it's important to spread these messages, So yeah, it's tough. Like I always am like, oh, if you love the piece, I feel like I wish I could just give it to you, but my gallery would kill me. And so I need to make money. So
I sell wine for a living. I'd love to give it away for free, but I got bills to pay. I understand.
Yeah. It is what it is. But yeah, I am really proud of the options that I give people, because I think options are amazing, and I think art should be affordable at any stage, and prints are a great way to for a young collector to step in, especially. So I do limited edition prints. I think you purchased one of the big ones, so those are actually very limited edition. There's only 10 of them, and then they're never printed again. So
Oh,
actually, it's a great investment at a lower price point. If you're just getting into art collecting, it's a great way to like dip a toe in without spending over $1,000. You know what I mean? Which
no,
is great.
excited about it. I'm excited about it. So, by the way, as you're enjoying a sip of the Marcel Blue, at this point, I kind of want to know if you have any questions about my wine, about my winery, because again, I want this to be a conversation. So, what's on your mind?
I mean, honestly, I don't know how much you've talked about yourself with these other things, but honestly, like the biggest thing that is of interest to me is the relationship of your family. I know you do this with your brother, but it's a big thing to step into this career. So, I mean, I guess like you and your brother, what made you decide to make that leap?
Oh, and it was a big leap.
Yeah,
So,
I imagine it would be.
you were telling the story earlier about how you started in the circus career, and then it kind of pivoted because of an accident, but it pivoted into what clearly turned out to be your real calling. I
Yes.
went to college to study creative writing. I was going to be a novelist, a poet. I was going to write for a living. I got a
Uh-huh.
degree in creative writing, and while I was in college, I got a job at a wine shop as a stock boy.
Hmm.
I didn't know anything about wine. I'm not from a wine family. Again, I'm from Illinois. And I get this job at 20 years old, sweeping the floors and taking out the garbage at a wine shop. And all of a sudden, I start learning about wine. I turned 21. I start tasting wine. And all of a sudden, there was a similar pivot. Like I thought, well, in the store, I started tasting wine at 21. Yes,
Yeah.
professionally, I started tasting wine at 21.
Hmm.
But for me, it was that similar pivot of like I thought my artistic passion, my career was going to be writing, and then it
Yeah.
turned out my real calling was wine. Similar to you, I think that you had that pivot and realized this is my real calling. When I discovered
Yeah.
wine, that realization of this is what I want to do. And at that same time in our lives, my older brother was a recent graduate of the Air Force Academy and a young officer in the Air Force flying helicopters, and he got stationed near Santa Barbara. And he started going wine tasting down in the kind of the Central Coast, San Ynez Valley area. So my brother and myself in our early 20s just sort of randomly discovered wine and bonded over that and found
Wow.
very random shared passion. And we had this crazy dream of, wouldn't it be amazing if one day our name was on a bottle of wine? And it seemed very improbable. People that own wineries are millionaires and they're from third generation.
Or families. Yeah. Yeah.
We're two middle-class Midwestern boys with no budget who just want to like start a business together. But we're also just sort of, ambitious enough, naive enough and crazy enough to do it. So about 12
That's
years,
what it takes.
and that's what it takes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to be an artist, go be an artist.
Yeah.
If you want to make wine, the answer is go make some wine. You can't wait for your dreams to fall in your lap. You have to go for it.
But
And
honestly, that is a hard lesson.
yeah,
People don't, I mean, like, honestly, the stuff I'm sure you and your brother had to overcome to make this happen is huge. You
yeah,
know what I mean? Like for me as a woman to say I'm going to be a fine artist and this is going to be a career and I'm going to have a kid and I'm going to do this,
right.
like that's a huge step. A lot of people aren't confident enough to make that step. And for you and your brother to come from not a family of wine to say this is something we love and to step into that and to make such great wine too. I mean, like that's pat yourself on the back. That's a big thing.
Well, we're
I
proud
mean,
of the
I
fact
just
that we are
go
that
ahead.
exception. We're not from a wine family. We're not millionaires. We don't own land. We're humble boys. We have a winemaker that's been with us since day one. His name is Gene. The three of us started the company from scratch on a shoestring budget. We now have expanded. We have a second location in Colorado now. We're thinking about growing even further than that. So it's a passion. It's a dream.
Yeah.
It's a profession. It's a career, but really inspired by a love of wine and wine culture. And so, I
Yeah.
feel very privileged, like you do, to be able to do something you love, but make a
Yeah.
life, make a career out of it. It's we're lucky. We're lucky to be
And
able to do what we love.
I'll say this about any career, for people watching, any career that you jump into, that you are your own proponent for, that word passion.
Yeah.
Because it is hard. It is so many, days, months, worrying if this is the right path, if this is what I should be doing, of putting your credit card maxed out to make it happen. I mean, and it takes like a crazy passion. Because if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. If it was easy to make a winery, I'll make wine for a living. It's not easy, and that's what it takes. It takes a real passionate heart, a passionate mind to jump into it, So I knew on that wine cruise, I was like, this is someone I gotta talk to. Yeah.
I've always said that through my career, there's just been people that I've met where I kind of think like, I'm going to follow that person. That's an interesting person that I want to know years from now. And, I think we're both, kind of lucky enough to have careers where we get to meet interesting people, and every once in a while have these sort of connections. And again, here it is 10 years later, and we're chatting on Zoom.
I love it.
Start wrapping up here a little bit. Because we could talk for another hour. The last question I want to ask you here is basically, what's the future? What's in store for Tracy Piper next? What are you thinking?
Yeah. So thanks for that question. So I've really been diving into community. This year has really, us all being apart, has really solidified in my mind how much we need each other. So this year I started a couple initiatives to put my money where my mouth is. So I've been highlighting artists of color, Black artists, queer artists, other artists who I think need to have a voice in the contemporary art scene. And that's done a couple ways. Like, I'm doing interviews on my Instagram and on YouTube. I'm also recommending these artists for shows. I'm lucky enough to be in a place in my career where I get to be able to do that. And then, I've got some stuff in mind for Art Basel this year. Hopefully we'll be in person in Miami. And just continuing this mission of mine where we feel seen, where we feel heard. I just want to go bigger, louder. I just want to keep raising money for causes I believe in, keep on keeping on, and to do it in varying ways, not just with my painting, which I love to do, and I love being a painter, but to inspire the next generation and to teach and to open up the world for everyone. I mean, I know that's a lofty idea, but screw it, I'm an artist. Let's try.
If you don't have lofty ideas, then lofty things don't happen. So, no, that's such a beautiful sentiment. On my note, I always like to end these sort of, interviews or Zoom tastings or experiences like this, I always kind of like to finish up with some sort of inspiring thoughts and inspiring words. And I think you just hit on something that I think about a lot these days, and that's community.
Yeah. And
I think over the last 13 months, community has been a struggle for a lot of reasons. Especially, the physical inability to gather as a community. And personally, I'm a silver lining guy. I like to, always think of the positive. And I think, for me, one of the positives that came out of the very trying times of COVID was, I think, for myself, which was, in my opinion, something a lot of people went through, is I found myself kind of reaching out to people I haven't talked to in a long time. I found myself, FaceTiming and Zooming and video chatting with people that I haven't talked to in a while. With this show that I'm creating, I've reached out to people like yourself that I haven't seen or talked to in years. So long. And I think, that to me is not just silver lining, but I think a positive that I hope all of us don't stop doing. Let's not, now that the world's starting to open back up, let's not stop finding creative ways to reach out to old friends. Let's not stop, finding an excuse to connect. Let's find our community. And we've had to get creative in finding our community in the last 13 months. And I hope to continue with that creativity. So I want to do one last toast, one last cheers. And it's a thank you so much for joining me. I am so privileged that you were willing to do this with me. I'm so happy that we were able to reconnect and chat, but also, you know, just a cheers to finding your community, a cheers to finding ways to connect and to come together. And if some good artwork and a nice glass of wine can be a part in bringing people together, that's what it's all about. So cheers.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. Hear, hear. Cheers.
And thank you to everyone at home that has viewed this. Again, Tracy Piper, you can go to your webpage,
TracyPiper.com. Yeah.
Absolutely. She's got a new book coming out, Voss Gallery. Check her out online. You can get original artwork. You can get prints. Pre-order the book. I cannot wait for my print to show up. I cannot wait for my book to show up. And once again, it was just such a privilege talking with you. So let's, you know, do this again sometime. Again, this was Decanted. I think we did a great job of opening up this conversation. Thank you very much. Everyone at home, cheers. We will see you next time.